right, guys, welcome back to Downtown Rams. As always, I'm your host, Alexis Kraft, joined here with my co-host, Jake Ellenbogen, and we are coming to you with our 2023 Rams NFL Draft recap episode. A lot of you guys joined us for our 3-day live stream where I looked much like I do now, disheveled, and running on very little sleep, as was Jake. That's kind of our thing every year is we don't sleep the entire NFL draft, and we give coverage the whole time. And it's very fun, but it is very taxing, Jake. I know towards the end, like the seventh round, I black out. I don't even remember what's going on. I'm just like, and the pick is next, and the pick is, and
Yeah.
later it kind of like comes back to me like a fever dream, where then I start to remember everybody that was taken in the seventh round, and I can think more clearly. But it's been about a week now, 6 days since the draft ended. We would have dropped this sooner, but quite honestly, guys, I had like the craziest week ever, and I was very slammed, and I wanted to make sure I had the time to watch these guys again and kind of see what people said about them, and make opinions and see what people are saying before we did this episode. So we're recording this now on Friday night, and this will probably come out tomorrow. But Jake, are you ready to dive into the Rams picks?
Yeah. I mean,
For
we spent a lot of time throughout the draft, and I mean, I I think you can tell. I mean, I'm pretty beat, but it's just the grind does
look
not
at
stop.
people are watching this on YouTube. I look like I just like somehow ran a marathon when I haven't done any physical activity today. It's just my overall appearance and demeanor is I am just like cooked. Like I am spent. I We're both very tired. But
Yes.
we have the energy to at least talk about the Rams draft picks, even though there were many. This is the most picks that the Rams have made, Jake, since you and I have been covering the draft together. And I don't know this off the top of my head, but I should have looked this up. Is this the most picks the Rams have ever made in a draft class? Because it
I
feels like it.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, yeah, 14. Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
lot. I mean, that's doubling what they give you. So,
right. Yeah, it's quite a bit. So we're gonna do our best to go through them. And the way that Jake and I are gonna do this is we're just gonna kind of take turns. Maybe Jake will go first for one pick, and then I'll go first for the next, and we'll just kind of, give our overall analysis of the pick. The pros, the cons, if we think there are any. I know when I was making my notes for this episode, Jake, I wrote down as well kind of what other people were saying about him, like other scouting reports, because I don't want to just act like my analysis is end all be all for each pick. So I'm going to do my best to just kind of give like a general consensus on each pick, which the truth is, and Jake knows this as well as I do, is like none of this, what matters is when they get on the field, right? But this is just us now analyzing the picks and value.
yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we could talk about, like, I think you and I were talking about how the Steelers had like an A+ grade, right? And I mean, I've given the Rams a hefty grade that we'll get into, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if they're not showing out on the field, and I think that's a big deal. Winning draft night doesn't always mean you got a bunch of Hall of Famers. Doesn't even mean you got a bunch of Pro Bowlers. It's a matter of that next step and how these guys, because we've seen the most can't miss prospects just not be able to work out in the NFL. So nothing is ever guaranteed. And I think that's, the hard truth. And Alexis, I'll say this, I was going through my rankings, those graphics I used to make. And even before we started working together, I was looking at my other rankings because I think those are kind of signed, sealed, delivered. It's been more than 3 years. I think it's fair to kind of grade and judge, based on that. And I got to tell you, I have some serious hits and then I have some flat out misses, some flat out whiffs. And so I think that's kind of like the nature of the NFL draft. It's almost like a 50-50 thing, Pick number 1 might be a superstar. Pick number 2 might be a bust. 3 might be good. 4 might be bad. Like it's really fascinating when I was going through and looking at it, just how many guys, end up being really good and how many guys end up being just not so good. So, yeah, nothing's
Well,
guaranteed.
the good news for the Rams is they have 14 picks. So the odds that more than one of them will be successful in the NFL
Pretty high.
is pretty high, which is good for them and good for us as Rams fans. So the odds are in our favor in terms of
Yes.
this being a successful class. So Jake, let's kick it off. We'll go in order the picks. So we'll start. I'll let you go first with our second round pick.
Yes. So the first pick of the Rams draft in the second round, 36th overall, they selected TCU guard Steve Avila, former center, moved to guard. And I love this pick because I feel like right off the rip, you're getting a guy that's NFL ready. You're getting a guy that's gonna, come in and really be able to protect Matthew Stafford. Didn't give up any sort of sack last year. Over 900 plus snaps, he only gave up one sack. And this is somebody that helps you in the run game. He's a really nice wide base, so he can really hold his ground and really show his ability to anchor. Because you'll have stronger defensive linemen that'll try to bull rush him, and he'll be able to plant that anchor and really, keep himself in the same spot. And he's really a wall. So for an offensive line that, struggled the way it did, Alexis, I feel like this is definitely an important pick here because it's right off the bat. I told you during the draft, it surprised me. I did not think they were going to go offensive line that early. It didn't sound like they were. And, he was the number one guy when they reset their board on Friday night or for Friday night. He was their number one guy. So we found out afterwards all the different reports of how the offensive line coach, Ryan Wendell was waiting essentially, like impatiently, and the Raiders traded up to just in front of the Rams, assuming that the Rams might want to go after your guy Michael Mayer because they had initially had interest in a tight end. And so I think this was a huge pick for the Rams to get started. You get a plug and play day one guard. You get a guy now, back to back drafts. You've started off your drafts getting guards. So the hope is that both he and Logan Bruss can play. And now you have two potential franchise guards on your offensive line, and both guards that are pretty versatile in their own right. You look at Steve Avila, he could play center, and I think he could play right tackle in a pinch. I wouldn't play him there, but he could. When you look at Bruss, he played tackle, he played guard, so a lot of positional versatility for the Rams. And they're getting younger, even though he's a little bit of an older pick, but they're getting younger here, and they're getting stronger in the interior, and I think that's what anybody would sign up for.
Yeah, I really wanted the Rams to go offensive line in the second round. I pretty much have the past several years have always been saying that I want offensive line with the first pick, and it has never happened. Well, I guess it has, but we haven't taken an offensive lineman this high. But I didn't think it was going to happen. Kind of as you said, it didn't seem that this is the direction the Rams were going to go in the second round. So I kind of put that aside. I did think they were going to go defense, but I absolutely loved this pick. Probably my favorite pick in the drafts. I think for most Rams fans, this has probably been our favorite pick just because we saw what happened last year with the offensive line, which was very bad. And even in the seasons leading up to last year, like it wasn't great. I don't think the Rams have had a super um, outstanding offensive line for a while personally. So I think that we're now heading in that direction, hopefully. So it was really exciting to see this pick. My interpretation of Steve is I wrote down run game God. He is very good in the run game. I think that a word that has been used by several people is mauler. I think you also used that word when we were doing our draft stream. He's just like a nasty offensive lineman, which I love. I think that it's very going to be very helpful for our running backs, especially to have Steve in there. He has great size. He's 6'3", 332 pounds, which is amazing. Um, just great size. Another thing that a lot of people think really helps him out is his experience. He was a redshirt senior, so he's played a while. And when you're looking at NFL draft prospects, a lot of teams, even though they're slightly older, a lot of teams do like players that have the experience of playing multiple years in college, just because, attitude wise, as well as you've seen it all during the games the longer that you've played. So yeah, I think really good. And then my last note on him was the versatility. He's played left guard and center. I mean, like you said, I probably wouldn't play him like at tackle, but like in a pinch, I'm sure he'd be better than others,
Yeah.
just because of his size, and he's proven to be versatile. But yeah, home run pick in my opinion by the Rams.
Yeah, and it's one of those safe picks, you know. It's like batting 1,000. Like you just it's going to work. And I mean, I know that kind of goes against what I was saying earlier, but he has just such a safe floor, I would say, because his floor is essentially plug and play starting guard in the NFL, and his ceiling, in my opinion, is all pro. I compared him to a guard on the Cleveland Browns. I don't know if you remember, when he came out, but Joel Bitonio, he reminds me of Bitonio. I feel like he's got that feistiness, that nastiness. He can work in pass pro. He can get down, get to the second level, combo block. That's just the type of guy that you want on your offensive line. And I mean, let's look at it like this. Right off the rip, pick 36. I mean, we talked about it. I've mentioned it before. Guys that have been picked at 36. You look at Debo Samuel. You look at Brees Hall. Xavier McKinney, Javon Holland, Miles Jack. Those are just guys off the top of my head. But there have been a lot of really good picks at 36. So really, there's a trend here that 36 is just where you find good football players. It's worked out for teams. And, at the end of the day, to start your, draft class, that at this point, we only knew that they had 11 picks because they didn't even make a trade here. So to start your draft class off with 11 picks and to pick a guy who immediately fills a hole, he addresses a problem that the Rams had last year in protecting the quarterback and helps the run game. This is A+ definitely for for Steve Avila and the Rams. I think it's a great fit for him. I think it's great for the Rams, and I think it's great for Stafford and Cam Akers and so forth.
I agree. So my grade on that pick is A+. Is that, I assume that that is also your grade
Yeah, I
for
mean,
the
I'm
pick?
probably not going to go through and like grade all the picks, but I
Okay.
just felt like right off the rip that was an A+ for me.
Do you want to just give our final grade at the end?
Yeah, that's probably
Okay.
better. Just because I don't want to hear it when like, oh, well, you graded him this on another.
Well,
Yeah, I don't want to hear
we're gonna
it.
we're gonna hear it. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
too
yeah,
late for me. All right.
yeah. Your
So,
fate is sealed.
all right. So next pick, round three, was Byron Young from Tennessee. I have to clear that
Yes,
up because there were two Byron Youngs in the drafts. And there, of course, as we could have expected, there was a mishap when the Raiders drafted Byron Young out of Alabama. They were reporting it as it was Byron Young out of Tennessee. So we thought he was already off the board. Then it got corrected, and then everybody was confused at what was going on. And then we realized Byron Young from Alabama went to the Raiders. Byron Young from Tennessee went to the Rams.
very
So
confusing.
Byron Young from Tennessee is who we're talking about. So the best part I think about him obviously is his story. How and I don't want to butcher this, you know it better than I do, but he was posting the videos basically during COVID, was able to get an offer at Tennessee and kind of exploded out of nowhere, essentially.
Yeah, Dollar
And
General too.
yeah, working at Dollar General. So Byron Young, the first thing that I think that really stands out about him is just he's an athletic specimen. Just the way that he's built. I mean, 6'3", 250 pounds, 4.4340, just 97th percentile in the vertical, by the way,
That's
is also
ridiculous.
just absolutely ridiculous. He had 16 sacks in 2 years playing in the SEC. So he only played for 2 years in the SEC and he had 16 sacks. He's very, very quick off the edge, high motor, great leverage. The biggest knock against him that I've found when I'm reading these scouting reports is a lot of scouts were concerned that he only played 2 years, which I didn't understand because he had very good stats in the 2 years that he played, and that he's 25 years old, which I can kind of understand, but whatever. I think the biggest thing with Byron is potential because he, is lacking in experience. I think that this is really a potential pick. I think he was drafted kind of maybe a little higher than some thought he would. I thought that he would be drafted in the third round, but I think for the potential that you can get out of Byron Young, it's totally worth the pick because, like I said, you have all those amazing athletic qualities. Yes, maybe a little inexperienced, you know, fine, but I think that he's proven that that doesn't really matter when you look at his skill set.
Yeah, I think when you look at Byron Young, this is just somebody that exemplifies going through adversity head on. And, going from Dollar General assistant manager to then going to this JUCO school, having, these highlights come out about you because they were filming the practices because COVID canceled the games, but they were still practicing. And he gets all these offers from the SEC, but one thing that stands out to me there, he's offered first by Tennessee. So that's why he decided to go there. He wanted to go with the first school that offered him. That's one thing I love. Second thing, now obviously the story. The second thing here, he just took number 0. Now, I know it's just a number, but I feel like, again, it exemplifies who he is as a person. There's never been a number 0 in the history of Rams football. There's been a double 0 in 1947, but there's never been a number 0. So there's no overshadowing, there's no following a path. This guy's a trailblazer. He's creating his own path. I've said he's like the edge version of Kurt Warner, but I mean, Kurt Warner went undrafted, and that's not really a fair comparison, but it kind of gives you an idea like Kurt Warner working at a high V and then, just having to go a different route than just going straight to the NFL. With Byron Young, he was drafted in the third. Let's make no mistake about it. But the fact of the matter is that he went from, Dollar General, JUCO, Tennessee, and to the Rams. He's going to wear number 0. He's going to, blaze his own trail. He's going to create his own path. And I don't know, that I just think that's really interesting. Now, when you look at him as a football player, if you want to get picky, I think, yes, he's an absolute freak off the edge. He's got serious juice. That 4.4 speed is going to be great. He can get sideline to sideline if he needs to, can chase down guys, can make tackles. I understand there's a lot of issues with him in the run game that scouts have. I think it's more the nuance and just the overall technique. Maybe it could be better. Bigger, offensive linemen might swallow him up in the run game. But I think at the end of the day, he's going to the NFL. He's going to work on that. And I believe that when you look at Byron Young, this is somebody that has a chance to be really good, like really good. I think that they got a guy who may not have been the first choice on other people's boards, but they did enough homework on him. They know he fits what they're looking for. And at the end of the day, I want guys that are going to be leaders on my team. I want to draft guys that, have like a lead by example approach. And I feel like he's just going to be a leader day one, even though he's a rookie, right? 25 years old. Yes, okay, that might be a little bit of an issue for some, but the Rams don't look at it that way. And it kind of goes back to why I've been saying, like, at the end of the day, I don't think that the Rams have been trying to tank. And I think this draft showed it, Alexis, because if they were trying to tank, they wouldn't have gone out and got high floor, ready to play right away players. They probably would have gone after high ceiling, not ready to play, and just thrown them into the fire. And that is not what Byron Young is. He is a high floor guy who can help you right away. Now, in order for him to reach his full potential, Alexis, he does need to improve his pass rush plan. What I mean by that is he doesn't have a lot of counters. He really doesn't counter. He's just going to try to use speed. He's just going to try to go around, and make plays that way. And just be kind of a straight line, rusher. But at the end of the day, I think that when you get to the NFL, you can work on that. I think being in the same room as guys like Aaron Donald is really going to help him out. And I trust him because I think this guy has already shown that he's willing to work as hard as anybody else. And if he develops that, pass rush toolbox and the overall plan and really, picks his spots, I think he can be a really dominant edge defender and edge rusher in the NFL.
The next pick, I'll let you go first with this, was Kobe Turner. defensive tackle out of Wake Forest in the third round, 89th overall.
Yeah, so with Kobe Turner, it's interesting because they absolutely love him. You talk about his just overall football IQ, how smart he is, how he makes plays. He plays through the whistle, maybe even a little bit after the whistle. But this is somebody that is coming to this team that they need something like that. They lost Greg Gaines, they lost Ashawn Robinson. Kobe Turner's probably going to fit right in there. Alexis, the first three picks might be 3 day one starters, and that's not unheard of. And it shouldn't surprise anybody, with what position they're in. So, I think when you look at Kobe Turner, just a really intelligent football player at the end of the day that is a good athlete, and he's a little undersized. I always use those air quotes because I don't know why we're still doing the whole undersized thing with defensive linemen. I thought Aaron Donald, taught everybody a lesson. I guess not. But he's going to get a chance to learn from Aaron Donald. And at the end of the day, I really trust any interior defensive lineman that's going to get that opportunity to work behind Aaron Donald, see his process and what he goes through. I will say this. I think that when you look at Kobe Turner, I may have had a higher grade on Adebawore, but Kobe Turner can end up being a better prospect just because of the fact that, who he's in the building with. And I think Henderson's going to get him in, going to look under the hood, see what he needs to work on, and they're going to figure it out. And this feels like the John Johnson pick all over again, where maybe there were some other guys there that I would have preferred, like when the Rams picked John Johnson, I wanted Desmond King. But, doesn't mean King was a bad player. It's just John Johnson did work out. And I think Turner's going to work out in LA.
Yeah, I think that if you guys were watching our live stream, we both really wanted Etomiwa Adebawore from Northwestern. And we were kind of, I think, puzzled with this pick of Kobe Turner. And the thing with Kobe Turner, when you look at him, the pause. So I also had an air quotes undersized, and then I wrote, "Where have we heard that before?" Question mark, because it's just absolutely ridiculous. I think Aaron Donald should have like crushed that narrative by now, but it is still out there. So although he is quote unquote undersized, he is really quick to shed blockers, high motor, great hands. Those are things that people like about him. Um, I think that where it starts to get kind of like questionable. So he never actually started at Wake Forest, but he had 43 and a half tackles for loss in his college career. So he did put up impressive stats, but he did never start. Part of that could be what you and I were saying during the live stream, is like he kind of gives off the vibe sometimes as more of like a rotational feel. And that's what he was in college. Now, can he shed that narrative? Yes. That doesn't mean, you know, very more times than not, like college, like these prospects don't end up being what they were in college. Like just because you had a role in college doesn't mean you're gonna have it in the NFL. So I think the Rams, because of how high they took him, they don't see him as a rotational player. So I think that that's not their long term goal. So we'll see. I think he's got a lot of upside. I think it's a very similar thing with Byron Young, like that kind of mindset is with Kobe Turner. There's a lot of potential there, there's a lot of upside. And if he can get the right coaching, be around the right people, he could reach a new peak.
And this could be one of their, I mean, I know they may have taken him a little early for people, but this might be, when we look back, this might be one of their gems. I mean, I remember when they took, Franklin Myers in the 4th round, and everyone's like, that was really early. And they actually found a gem. They just didn't hold on to him. So when it comes to, Turner, he's going to be in that room. He's going to have a chance to compete. I mean, you have Marquise Copeland, you have, Jonah Williams, Bobby Brown the third. He's going to have a chance to compete. And let's be honest here. He was picked 1 round higher than Bobby Brown was. So that's something to keep in mind moving forward. I think that round selection was very interesting because I don't think a lot of people took the interior defensive line as seriously as the Rams did. I don't think they looked at it as like, oh, we need to get a 3rd rounder, day 2 guy. I think they were looking more 5th round. You get a guy in there, has a chance to compete. They've also done such a nice job with like UDFAs. I mean, if you think about Hoyt, who's now an outside linebacker, Hoyt was a UDFA, Williams was a UDFA, Copeland was a UDFA. Laurel Murchison was just a guy that they basically claimed off waivers after the Titans cut him, former 5th-round pick. So, I think they've done a nice job of finding, talent outside the building. And I think that's why a lot of people were like a little surprised by this pick and where it was. But no, I think it was a good pick. And then, round 4, certainly, the most polarizing pick of the entire draft, I would say, for the Rams. I mean, I think Stetson Bennett is a love him, you hate him type of guy. I think he's somebody that has a lot of fans, kind of similar to when Baker Mayfield became a Ram. But I also think there are a lot of people that do not like him. I think there are a lot of people that watched him at Georgia and give, all the credit towards, his supporting cast. And I think there's something to be said in between a lot of that where, yes, he played on a team with a lot of talent. They won 2 national titles. Obviously, you have to have talent to do that. But at the same time, he had to make those throws. And we've seen quarterbacks who haven't gotten that done on the level he did. And I think while everyone's trying to kind of compare him to Jake Fromm, Alexis, I would say he's a lot better than Fromm. And I don't think he's being somewhat underrated, I think. I had him as a 4th-round grade, like I said in the draft. That does not mean he comes in right away. I saw a comment out there. I think he has a chance to push Matthew Stafford. Like, no. Matthew Stafford won a Super Bowl in the NFL. And unless he gets hurt, I don't think Stetson sees the field. But the Rams did just go out and add Brett Rippon, and I think he'll win that battle. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah. I this is the only pick that I this was my least favorite pick of the Rams draft. Anybody who watched the live stream knows that. He does have a vicious crowd of fanboys that did come for me. I'm
Oh, yeah.
still alive. I'm still breathing, so they can't be that bad. But the thing with Stetson Bennett, I had him graded as like a 6th to 7th round pick. And by the way, guys, I know everyone who were clip warriors and just wanted to Google Stetson Bennett and YouTube Stetson Bennett and came across our clips. Like people are probably going to do with this as well, and watch my analysis on Stetson Bennett. I'm actually in the majority in that thinking, by the way. If you want to go look up actual scouting reports from NFL scouts that you can read online, I was in the majority in that camp. So I wasn't saying anything crazy by saying that Stetson Bennett was projected to be a late round pick. I do fall into the category that he had a really good supporting cast at Georgia. I don't really think when you watch Stetson Bennett, it's anything that he's doing that was leading them to those championship wins. Now, there is something to be said for winning. So I can't knock him for that. I do give him, the credit. I mean, not anybody can just go win 2 national championships. I think that he has a lot of confidence. He will make the big play. He's not afraid to, and I think that that's what you need to be, a winning quarterback in the NFL. Certainly. But other than the obvious appeal of the national championships, I mean, I think he's got pretty good accuracy. He's not afraid to use his legs. He sees the field, pretty well. I'd say better than average for most quarterbacks in college. I mean, I think that he doesn't struggle to read the field at all. But I think the thing with him is he lacks arm strength. He doesn't really have that good of an arm. A lot of people don't like that, but it's just true. That is on most scouting reports. He's not very accurate with the deep ball as well. And he also holds on to the ball really long. That was something I think that in college was kind of like his biggest enemy, was beating himself by just holding on to the ball too long. So that might be a decisiveness issue. He certainly had a good offensive line, so I wouldn't say it was because of the offensive line. Um, the personality, hit or miss, like Jake said. I think some people really like that mentality, kind of that in your face, super confident type of thing, and it bothers a lot of people. So yeah, I don't want to get too crazy because the clip warriors who think that they're big and bad on YouTube are going to come for me. And I'm not going to deal
I
with
yeah,
any.
I will say, like, you and I absolutely disagree with that pick, and that's okay. I think, here's the thing, that this show doesn't really become watchable if we agree on everything. And I think that's the thing that people forget, is that you and I both have separate opinions. We're not told by higher ups, so this is what you have to say, you have to create this narrative. We haven't been afraid to speak out about the team. I spoke out about the offseason and said I didn't like it. I really like the draft. This is one of those picks where I think, you and I were kind of in agreement on the first three. We kind of veer off a little bit here, and that's fine. I mean, personally, I think, watching Bennett's tape, I wasn't expecting, like when I dove into it, and I kept the tweet up, Alexis, I had said in January, this is another college quarterback. I thought, I got like the vibe of like, I don't know, like Tebow, like some, kind of that realm, where I never thought Tebow was an NFL quarterback. I never thought that. The fact he got drafted in the first round literally blew my mind. Christian Hackenberg, I said he was undraftable. He goes in the second round, never plays a game in the NFL. But there was something about watching Bennett where I was like, man, I'm going to have to eat my words, because I felt, and I've said it on this show like a while ago. Remember, I was like, I think they might get the kid from Georgia. Like, I think it might not be his last time playing in SoFi. But I think when you look at Bennett, what impresses me the most are throws that there are quarterbacks in the NFL that can't even make them. Like, I noticed the far hash throw to the far sideline. Like, there are guys in the NFL that still can't hit that. Like, I watched Zach Wilson last year try to do that and throw pick sixes, I feel like Stetson has enough to work with, where you get him with a Zach Robinson, you get him with a Sean McVay, you get him with Matthew Stafford, and they're going to create a plan for him, Mike LaFleur. And I think if he has to start for an injured, God forbid, Matthew Stafford this year, because assuming he plays all 17 games seems a little delusional, in my opinion, I think Stetson can start. I think if Stetson is throwing to Cooper Kupp, hopefully a resurging Van Jefferson, who's building off the end of last season, Tutu Atwell, Ben Skoranek, Tyler Higbee, Davis Allen, Bryson Hopkins. I mean, I feel like the offensive line is going to be repaired. You have, Cam Akers, Kyron Williams, Zach Evans. Like, to me, there's enough there where I feel confident that Stetson can run the offense, and I think he'll look better than Wolford, in my opinion. And I think that, his mobility is real. A lot of the times, in college, it's like, okay, well, he can run, but there's not a lot of fast guys in college, so he looks a lot faster than he is. No, I mean, he ran below a 4.7. So, I mean, that's faster than Carson Wentz. And I remember Carson Wentz looked pretty fast coming out. But, I just think at the end of the day, Alexis, when you look at this pick, it's really going to separate a lot of people. But I think it's important to realize that, like, everyone's entitled to their opinion. And this isn't a pick that just automatically will just work for people, because I mean, how many times have we covered the draft? How many times have you and I liked this player and the Rams went in this direction? How many times have you and I watched quarterbacks? We watched plenty of quarterbacks. Jaron Hall was right there, but then I find out Jaron Hall had his shoulder was red flagged. So that might have been the reason, but they really like Stetson. I like Stetson. So I'm excited to see what ends up happening there, but I think he's got legit starting quarterback upside. He doesn't need to be that right away. And so he's in probably the best position to succeed. I'd say the same thing if it was Will Levis. I'd say the same thing if it was Hendon Hooker. I'd say the same thing if it was Clayton Tune or Aiden O'Connell. You get a chance to sit behind Stafford. I don't care what you bring to the table. You don't have any pressure on you. As a fourth round pick, not having any pressure on you, that's a good thing.
So we disagree on the Stetson pick, but we agree on the next pick, Jake.
Yes.
On Nick Hampton, our fifth round pick, 161st overall, the edge rusher from App State. Jake, what are your thoughts on Nick?
This is a juicy player, Alexis. I don't mean that in a weird way. He just provides the edge with a little juice off it. He's an explosive athlete. A guy, he's going to be rocking, I think, 31. That's a really weird number for a pass rusher off the edge, but that's the world we're living in right now. So Nick Hampton is going to be a situational rusher. He needs to work on his run defense, I believe. When I watch the tape, he doesn't really set the edge well, and that's fine. I mean, when you're playing at App State, The things that you're doing at that level, if they don't translate at the NFL level and you're a fifth round pick, that's okay. I think this is really good value for the Rams. I had him about a late third, early fourth round grade. And, I think they got a really good pass rusher that has potential to be a starter down the road. He needs to work in run defense, though. He needs to work in really fine tuning his craft as a pass rusher. But he can help you right away as a rotational guy. And, it might not be the best coach to take it away from, but to be fair, he did coach in the Super Bowl. He won a lot of games. Jeff Fisher always said, you can never have too many pass rushers. And I agree with him because in this league, with all the injuries the Rams went through last year, you can never have too many anything in this league. So, I think Nick Hampton, he'll fit right in there as the third, fourth, or fifth guy wherever they see him. Daniel Hardy's still on the roster. Keir Thomas is still on the roster. I think Keir Thomas is more of a role player as a guy that can set the edge, stop the run. He's a bigger bodied guy. Then you look at Nick Hampton. He's of the similar vein as a Daniel Hardy. So I think those two are going to be battling it out. I don't think necessarily they'll be battling with Keir Thomas because, like I said, Thomas brings a different skill set. But I love this pick because anytime you go out and you get a guy that can contribute day one in the fifth round, you're cooking with gas.
Yeah, Nick Hampton, kind of in terms of like the athletic specimen pool, very, very much so. I mean, 6'3", 240 pounds. He sumo deadlifts 600 pounds and incline presses 365 pounds. So he's a very strong man.
Yeah.
If you guys weren't aware, just athletic freak. Absolutely just insane. Very fun to watch in terms of an athlete. Um, Again, back to his athleticness. He's very explosive, high motor, start to finish. He's a good tackler, quick. I mean, when you watch him, you can just, those athletic qualities that a lot of other guys don't have, I think really stand out with him. I think like the only knock that some scouts had on him was that he needs to find more moves in the pass rush, which you kind of alluded to as well. As he's going to have to, I think, take some time to kind of diversify his skill set there. But yeah, I don't think that as much is going to be expected from him day one as like a Byron Young, right? So I think that he has time. He's developmental, but I mean, the athletic traits are there.
Yeah, no, they absolutely are. And before we move on to the next player, I didn't want to come off as like I'm disrespecting App State, but just it's the facts. When you're playing in college, things that you do, you get away with, like body catching as a wide receiver, or maybe you're not that great of a blocker as a tight end, or maybe you don't really run with any vision as a running back. You bounce everything in the outside. As an edge defender, you have a lot of false steps. You don't have a plan of attack. You just win off pure athleticism because you were simply stronger and faster than everyone else against you. That when you're translating that to the big boys, you're playing in the NFL, the best players in the world at that sport, you need to, improve upon your game. You need to have more refinement. So it's not a knock on Nick Hampton. It's not to say that he's lazy or that App State is a joke. It's more so to remind people that, like you and I have talked about, there is a transitional period from the college ranks to the NFL. And it doesn't matter if it's FCS or FBS. It doesn't matter if it's D2, D1, or D3. There's always going to be that transitional period. And we've seen it, Alexis, with the Rams. I mean, Van Jefferson was a second round pick, 57th overall in 2020. And he had not even 300 receiving yards his first year. And this is a guy they drafted in the second round. So there's always a chance they redshirt a guy like Nick Hampton, or they take their time with these guys. But at the end of the day, they're going to do what works best. They're going to get along. They're going to get these guys in a room. They're going to figure out what their strengths are, their weaknesses are. Because keep in mind what these guys worked on, you see on tape. I mean, the weaknesses, Alexis, they might have already fixed them during the pre-draft process. I think that's something we kind of forget.
And this next pick is another one that I know we both really liked a lot. In the fifth round,
Just a little bit.
174th overall, we drafted Warren McClendon, offensive tackle out of Georgia. So he was protecting Stetson Bennett while he was at Georgia. So Warren McClendon, big offensive tackle. A lot of scouts actually think he has the versatility to play all three positions on the offensive line. I didn't know that and really pick up on that when I was watching his tape, but I don't doubt it. Just because he's, I guess you could kind of see it. But he apparently, a lot of teams felt like he had a really high football IQ and they really liked that out of him. I think he's pretty sturdy. He good with his hands. The only knock on Warren McClendon is that he has kind of heavy feet. And he's not super fast, so if he can lose leverage against like faster edge rushers, that can be kind of difficult for him. He's not able to really keep up with them, so I don't know that he's starter quality right away. Obviously, if he has to step in, I think he'll be fine. I think he's a lot to work on, and a lot of that just has to do simply with the athleticism a little bit. Whatever he needs to do to kind of be better against the pass rush. But the talent is there. Obviously, played on a national winning team. Looked pretty good. If you watch his tape, very solid. I'd say wins more than he loses, but if he can just kind of get down like the feet, just be a little lighter, a little quicker on his feet, and stand up more against those pass rushers, I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, Warren McClendon is somebody that I had highlighted early on in the process as somebody that, I mean, he was my 7th overall offensive tackle in the draft. I thought he was a guy that played at Georgia, but was being treated like he was this small school prospect that no one wanted to talk about. Very similar to Tremaine Ankrum, guy that won big games, played in big games, started at a big program in Clemson, had a lot of really key experience, intelligent, but a guy that was, for whatever reason, his tape is rock solid. I mean, it's not, he doesn't have perfect footwork or whatever, but I mean, Ankrum had really good tape, and he fell to the later rounds. And so I felt like I was watching the same thing over again with Warren McClendon. I called Warren McClendon Tremaine Ankrum, like a higher end Tremaine Ankrum, where he could play guard, he could play tackle. I think they're going to look at him as a guy that probably kicks in at guard in the depth field. And then over time, Alexis, I think he'll have a chance to replace Havenstein at right tackle. That's what I think. I feel like that's what we're looking at. I think this guy has, a lot of talent, and, he's physical. I mean, you watch him at the Senior Bowl in those one-on-ones, and he just neutralizes guys with that first punch. And so I think really the issue, like you had mentioned, he does have those heavy feet, and I think his footwork is wonky. And once he gets that down, like, because he hasn't had NFL coaching yet, once he gets that down, he has enough tools where this guy's a future starter in the NFL. So it's another really great pick from the Rams, I thought, and just a very, very high football IQ. You have to have it if you're going to play at Georgia. So I really love this pick. It just really showed me that, okay, we're not afraid to continue to address the offensive line. We're not afraid to pick a guy maybe a round earlier than some teams would have picked him. We're just going to go out and get a guy that's, won big games, played in big games, gone against big competition, and has some familiarity with the quarterback that we're drafting to be our backup. That doesn't hurt either.
And Jake, the next pick was literally the next pick.
Yeah.
Davis Allen was 174th overall. The next pick was, or sorry, not Davis Allen. I just ruined that. Warren McClendon was the 174th overall pick. Then Davis Allen was the 175th pick. So back to back picks here, quite literally. Jake, what are your thoughts on Davis Allen?
Yes. So I was actually able to break this one just like the Stetson Bennett one live. That was fun. I love Davis Allen. Okay. 7th overall tight end, a guy that didn't run well at 40 time, whatever. He plays way faster than a 4.84. He had a 91% contested catch rate. So pretty much you throw him up the ball in double coverage or single coverage, he's going to come down with it. I think with Allen, he gives you a guy that you can really develop into your next, kind of the future, right? Because you look at Bryson Hopkins, he'll be a free agent after the season. Things might not have gone the way they wanted that to. And so he might be out after this year, right? He might just sign a deal with somewhere else. And, Tyler Higbee will probably be gone after this year. They're both under, in their last year of their contract. And then you look at, Hunter Long, and you're like, okay, like there's some depth in this room, but also I think Davis Allen has the upside. I don't care about the 40 time. I think Davis Allen has the upside to be one of the best tight ends from this draft. I said it. I was like, I'd rather have Davis Allen in the fifth, sixth round, wherever he goes, over picking Schoonmaker in the second. I like Schoonmaker, but I think the value the Rams got getting Davis Allen in the fifth round was awesome. And this is somebody, Alexis, where had he played with Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson, he's going in the second or third round. But he played with DJ Ugalele, or however you say his name, and it just wasn't a great time at Clemson. I mean, they were not a great football team. They were, very underachieving, and it was just not the same team. So I think at the end of the day, when you look at that, that caused Davis Allen to fall. The Rams will scoop him here, get him in the room. Nick Caley, the new tight ends coach for the Rams, wanted him badly. So that was a big thing there. He really wanted him. He was really hoping for him. So they were able to make this pick. And I think they got a lot better, so far through this part in the draft at 175. I thought they got some guys that can help them down the road, help them for the future. But maybe Davis Allen shocks us and he plays, sooner than later.
Yeah, Davis Allen, obviously he has kind of the name credibility. He played at Clemson. He is pretty, I think with him, what's impressive is he can kind of make catches from everywhere. Like he has a pretty good catch radius. So if you can get the ball kind of in his general vicinity, he's probably going to make the catch. He has very soft hands. I hate that term, but that's just a term that people use. So pretty good at making all types of catches. He's not afraid to block, which I think is going to be important for him being on the Rams. He can
Underrated
is
blocker. I'm glad you brought that
yeah,
up.
blocking tight end. Um, at the line of scrimmage, he's pretty good at creating separation. I think the thing, like what I've written down with Davis Allen, is he lacks speed. I think that you and I might view the tape. I don't really think that he's very fast for a tight end. I don't think it matters because he has those other qualities. Like I said, I think that that's going to just limit kind of how he is used. And then he also, a lot of scouts don't really like his route tree. They said he ran a really limited route tree at Clemson, but that's something that can be fixed. I mean, I get that it's a knock, but especially because I don't think that he's going to be expected to start right away. He can go ahead and learn the Rams route tree and diversify his portfolio there. So I don't think that's super concerning. I think, in like kind of like you said, I don't think it's going to be a huge deal that he's not a quote unquote fast tight end. I don't. That's not how they're going to use him. So yeah. Uh, Next fifth round pick, because we have another one. This is our fourth fifth round pick. Was a guy that I really really liked, and I actually mocked to the draft, mocked to the Rams a few times when I was doing my mock drafts. And that's Puka Nakua, fifth round pick, 177th overall, a wide receiver from BYU. And I think what's fun about him is so you actually we just were talking about routes. He's a very polished route runner, and he's very good at creating separation with defensive backs, which is an important ability to have as a receiver. Not all of them have it, but pretty much anywhere on the field, he's able to create separation. And he also has a very reliable hands. He does not drop many passes, which is also very important. And again, it's something that should seem obvious when you're talking about wide receivers. Like they shouldn't drop any of the balls, but there are receivers that have problems with that, especially in college. So the fact that he did not drop hardly any passes at all, very impressive. He's really good at tracking the ball downfield. You can use him deep. You can use him probably anywhere in the field, but he's very good at tracking the deep ball. And he makes those off balance catches, kind of like in the same way that Davis Allen does. If you can kind of get the ball to Puka just in the general vicinity, he's probably going to catch it. He can make some impressive catches that way. So I really liked this pick. And yeah, I think it was great. And he was like one of the three guys that I actually had going to the Rams in my mocks. So I was happy about that.
Yeah, I think Puka is definitely a Rams receiver. I think look at Josh Reynolds when he had to be the high end wide receiver 4 behind guys like Sammy Watkins, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks. I thought he did a really nice job of filling in a role, and I think the thing that was kind of the rude awakening for Josh Reynolds is when he realized that size wasn't going to be a factor in the NFL. He wasn't built to really box out defenders, and his timing in those jump ball situations just didn't translate the way it did in college. He did struggle with that. So what did Josh Reynolds do? He became more of a finesse possession receiver. I think Puka Nacua is more than just a guy that's just going to go up and get a jump ball, though. I mean, when you look at his hand-eye coordination near the sideline. First off, his sideline awareness is the best in the class, I thought. The guy's always trying to get 2 feet in bounds, which points to him because I swear to God, like they need to get rid of the college 1 foot in bounds rule. It's the most ridiculous thing ever. But Nacua always tries to get 2 feet in bounds. He has a really, really good, presence, I would say, in the red zone. Just a really good feel in the red zone. Does a really nice job of attacking, certain leverage, in coverage. And, I think when you look at him, he's a good route runner that can help you also as, a little bit of a gadget guy, can take those jet sweeps, can make things happen. I know people were calling him kind of similar to Robert Woods and Deebo Samuel. I don't think that's fair. I see more Josh Reynolds in his game. Obviously he's not 6'3", he's more 6'1", but this is somebody that's really intelligent. He was a captain at wide receiver, which you don't normally see a number C. You don't see a letter C on a wide receiver uniform, but all in all, I like this pick. This felt very Ben Skoroniki, where it was like, all right, this is our type of receiver. Like they have their own archetype. They like, smart receivers. They like guys that are multifaceted. And that's what Puka Nacua is. Is he the best receiver in the league? No. Is he the best receiver in college? No. Was he the best receiver on BYU? Yes, he absolutely was. And when watching Jaren Hall tape, he's constantly coming down with it. You can constantly see him, just his awareness near the sideline to get his feet in bounds, to use the sideline to his advantage. A lot of ball carriers, they get near the sideline, they kind of run themselves out of bounds, they tackle themselves, if you will. He does a really nice job of using that to his advantage, making a guy miss, and now he can kind of jump back into the middle of the field. He's going to be a fun player to watch. I think he's going to wear number 17 like Robert Woods, and that's going to be a little bit of an adjustment for me.
When I did my roster number predictions, I predicted 16.
Okay.
So I was one off. But yeah, love that pick, Jake. The next pick, in the 6th round, 182nd overall, the Rams picked Tre'vius Hodges Tomlinson, the cornerback from TCU. What says you?
Major steal. Probably one of the biggest steals of any team in the NFL draft. Tre'vius Hodges Tomlinson, I don't really know what more you could ask for. I mean, I believe Les Snead picked Lamarcus Joyner, if I'm not mistaken. He had to go up and trade for him in the 2nd round. Here's the thing. Joyner was 5'8", probably about 180. Tre'vius Hodges Tomlinson's 5'8", 5'9", whatever you want to say. I think he's more 5'8", even 5'7.5". But the point is, like, this is 2023. I mean, there have been guys that have been drafted 5'8", DBs that have been traded up for in the 2nd round. I don't know what this guy has to do to go higher. I mean, he won the Jim Thorpe Award. That goes to the best cornerback in college football. This is somebody that is in the 90 plus percentile in pretty much every athletic measurement except for his weight and height, which that's not really an athletic measurement now, is it? So THT, day one starter at nickel. I think they have to move Jacoby Durant to the outside. And then I think you have a Darion Kendrick versus Robert Rochelle battle on the other side. I think that's what happened here. I think the Rams got a lot better in the 6th round. Not something you normally say, but when you're able to get a guy like THT who has that, LaDainian Tomlinson bloodline, that's really impressive to get him at 182. Now, he made a mistake. He should have worn 21. Zach Evans will wear 21. It would have been cool to see LT having that number back in the NFL and having his nephew wearing it on the Rams.
I agree. Missed opportunity there, but I think he just probably wants to carve his own path and
Yeah,
do his own
can't
thing.
blame him.
So good for him. Yeah, I mean, he is one of the most athletic cornerbacks in the draft, I think, in terms of explosiveness and agility. He's also very experienced. He played roughly 2,500 snaps for
Yeah,
TCU.
that
So
guy
he
fell in the
has
6th round.
Yeah, he's very experienced. He's seen it all. So, NFL teams really, really like that. He had 41 passes defended at TCU last year. Got a lot of action. He was in the games, and if you guys watched TCU last season, they were very good. They played in the National College Championship. So some of those passes he defended, Jake, are from his now teammate, if I'm not mistaken, Stetson Bennett. So that's going
Oh
to be
yeah.
fun for them to match up in practice. I think with him, he's viewed mostly as a slot corner, but he played outside in college. So I think that that's going to be an interesting challenge for the Rams to decide how, kind of what you said earlier, how they want to use him with the other corners that they have. The knocks on Hodges Tomlinson are his size, 5'8", 175 pounds. He has smaller arms than, a lot of the other guys at corner. So some teams are a little concerned about that. And then they he's a little grabby. Like he'll get a lot of flags and like fouls. He kind of jumps the gun. He plays very aggressive, which can be very good for a corner. But you see a lot of plays with him where he'll kind of jump on the receiver and get a little too aggressive, and then receivers win the matchup. So those are things I think that can be corrected with the right coaching and just NFL experience. Overall, I think definitely raw talent that you're getting to steal in the sixth. I thought that he would go higher, um, as I think most people probably did. So the fact that he fell to the sixth round, lucky us. Say that. I think the Rams got a steal. Next sixth round pick, Jake, 189th overall. So 7 picks later, the Rams drafted their third edge rusher of the 2023 NFL draft. They drafted O'Shawn Mathis, the edge rusher out of Nebraska. He is the most raw, I would say, of the three edge rushers taken by the Rams, which is understandable. He was the last one taken in the sixth round. I think that he has all of those athletic traits, maybe not as flashy as like a Byron Young that the other two have. He's really great body control. It takes a lot to kind of throw him off. You don't really see him um, get thrown off balance. He's got really good spin moves. It was funny because I was looking at like reports on him, and like multiple scouts were like very impressed with his spin move. Like they were like, this is like one of the best spin moves that we've seen in this class. So that's kind of his claim to fame, I'd say, in the scouting process. I think his only real knock is that he is just so raw. Like he's not obviously, a day one starter. I think he is going to take time to develop. But I think that was kind of the Rams' intention of taking him in the sixth round, is they see a guy who they think has a lot of potential, and they're like, you know what, we've already taken two edge rushers that, will play over him. Let's grab this guy and develop him for a couple seasons and see what happens.
Yeah, I really like that pick just because of that. O'Shawn is not somebody I was able to finish his evaluation before the draft, but I did get a chance to watch his TCU tape. I didn't watch his Nebraska tape, and then after the draft, I watched his Nebraska tape, and I could see why they draft him. They draft him because they're like, hey, that guy that's playing at TCU, we want that because that guy can play, and I think really it's important here. Context is needed. Nebraska was kind of just a huge mess. You know what I mean? They were trying to, and I've said this now multiple times, but they were literally trying to recruit Kansas's coach, Lance Leipold, like the entire season. So they were all over the place, right? And I just feel at the end of the day, O'Shawn Mathis probably should have stayed at TCU. He probably shouldn't have transferred, but he thought this was a good opportunity for him, and unfortunately, it just didn't work out the way he probably intended. He's a 6'5", 250-pounder, vines for arms. NFL.com said. I noticed that, but I think really what it comes down to is this is who you get in round 6. You're not supposed to find tre'vius Hodges Tomlinson in round 6. You're not supposed to find NFL ready guys. You're supposed to find guys like this. You pick O'Shawn Mathis. This is a lottery ticket, as Lance Erline said on NFL Network. Like, look, the Rams are drafting this guy's a lottery ticket. In 2 to 3 years, he might end up being something, But right now, he's probably. I mean, he might see some time on the team, but I'm honestly expecting him to be a practice squad guy because I think this is a guy that you'll be able to kind of sneak onto your practice squad, develop him, keep him in the building. And I think 2 to 3 years you could be looking at something. Now, the problem with that is that 2 to 3 years from now, it's going to be almost at the end of his contract. So, it's kind of it goes both ways, right? So I think O'Shawn, he has a good support system. He has a good organization he's going to for pass rushers. Obviously, we've seen plenty of pass rushers succeed for the Rams. So I like this pick for that reason alone. But then when you watch this TCU tape, Alexis, you can definitely see why they chose him.
And with our last pick in the 6th round, Jake, the Rams took a running back, which this was late for a lot of people. A lot of people thought that the Rams were going to take a running back higher, and I said I didn't think so. I didn't think that running back for the Rams was as big of a need that a lot of people made it out to be. I think that they like Akers. I think that they like Kyron Williams. I didn't think that they were going to go take a running back in the 2nd or 3rd rounds. I just didn't. So they finally took a running back in the 6th round. They took Zach Evans, running back out of Ole Miss, 215th overall. Jake, what do you think about Zach?
Yeah, so we talk about another TCU transfer here, Zach Evans. He goes to Ole Miss and he's expected to be the starter. Unfortunately, he does lose his starting job. I finally remembered his first name. I keep saying Judkins. Well, it's Quinshawn Judkins, and keep the name in mind because he's probably going to be a top pick at some point whenever he comes out. But Evans, to me, I compared him to Dalvin Cook. I see the speed, I see the power combination. He's a little bit bigger than Dalvin Cook, I would say, but it's funny. There's a lot of people that are comparing him to Cam Akers, which is hilarious because he's going to be going in that same room. And what I'm hearing, Alexis, is that they like Kyron Williams as the running back that's going to be there on 3rd down. He's going to be a reliable pass protector. He's going to be a receiving threat and potentially change of pace. But Zach Evans has a chance to win that starting job post Cam Akers, and so they felt like they had something here when he fell to pick 215. They traded up to go and get him, just like they did with Kyron last year. They traded up in the 5th round. They go up and they trade for another running back in Zach Evans. And this is somebody I had a late 2nd round grade on. I think he fell because we've heard about maturity issues and maybe there was some some medical stuff as well that was thrown in there. But I think he fell because teams were really concerned about his maturity issues. And when you get to the 6th round, it's like, who gives? Who really cares at the end of the day? The Rams had 4 6th round picks or 3 6th round picks. I mean, at the end of the day, they're not going to care. They also had 3 7th rounds. So they felt at this point in the draft, this is the time where a team can just go out and get a guy like Zach Evans. And they're like, you know what? We're going to just, we're just going to trade up and get him. And I think he offers that home run hitting ability that's not currently on the roster. I think Kyron had it in college, but that speed is not home run hitting in the NFL. I think Cam Akers had it in college. That speed is not home run hitting in the NFL. But I think the irony is that Cam Akers ran a 4.47, and I think Zach Evans 4.5. Whatever he ran the 4.5, I think his tape shows that he has more explosiveness. And I think that's a big issue there for teams because when you're able to, explode out of the gate, like, you're going off the rock and roller coaster or whatever, 0 to 60, you already have that advantage. You're already in the 2nd level. It's about maintaining that long speed. And that's something Zach Evans has. Now, the question marks with Evans, and you're getting a running back in the 6th round, so it's not going to be perfect. But the question marks with him, even if he went in the 2nd, vision, right? He's got some inconsistent vision. He'll be great in some cases. Others, he really likes to bounce it outside. So you're getting a running back that might be a little one-dimensional as of right now. But I think if they coach him up, they get him under the hood, Ron Gold can really work on him. And I think he's going to play a little bit this year. Number 21, Zach Evans, Alexis. I really believe that. And I think he's got a future to potentially be the starting Rams running back down the road. But that might be way down the road. I don't know. They just really they're feeling great about this pick.
Yeah, so what I have down for Zach Evans is kind of like you said, the home run hitter, quick burst, top end speed. So he kind of like they brought him in to be the punch. Like I think he's a very situational running back, at least for now. In that sense, I think that he complements the other 2 running backs that we have in that way. He has that home run speed that they don't. The concerns about Zach Evans, like you said, the maturity thing, a lot of teams were have a bad taste in their mouth with him about that. And then his vision, I wrote, he can get confused and doesn't react to changes in the defensive front. So he does panic a lot, doesn't have those quick eyes, so he'll get the ball, he's not really sure what to do, he'll try to bounce outside, or he'll get tackled for a loss, or he's not quite sure. It's the vision, which we've seen in other running backs in the NFL, vision issues. He also had a really high fumble rate in college. Now, is that something, sometimes that's something that can go away when you go to the NFL. It's a mental thing, for the most part, I think. So I'm not super concerned about it, but that was, a lot of scouts wrote down that they were concerned by his high fumble rate. But yeah, I think that the Rams, like you said, they were in the sixth round, and I think that they had enough picks where they were like, you know what, we see potential here. Why not? If it doesn't work out and all of these knocks against him prove to be valid, then it doesn't work out. But we took him in the sixth round. We're not making a super high investment in him. So um, the next pick, Jake, is another Evans. They took back to back Evans. If only Bobby Evans was still on the team, we'd have an Evans trio. But he is not, thankfully. But the Rams in the seventh round, 223rd overall, they took punter Ethan Evans out of Wingate. And I believe that he is the only punter the Rams have drafted, at least in recent memory, because Johnny Hecker was not drafted. Johnny Hecker was a UDFA.
Yeah.
And the punters that we've had, the few punters that we've had since Johnny Hecker were also free agent signings. So, Jake, I'm not going to lie. Anybody who pretends, I don't want to say pretends, but most people are not able to put together a comprehensive scouting report on a punter if they haven't been a punter themselves. It's one of those positions that it's like kind of hard sometimes. Like you can look at a few things, but it's hard. It's just harder to grade. But I looking at other people's reports on Ethan Evans, is he has pretty good leg strength. That stands out. 50% of his punts were within the 20-yard line. So that's a pretty good stat for a punter. And he played all 4 years in college. So he had a lot of experience playing against good teams. So that's what I have. I was actually not upset about this pick. I know people thought that I was because I made a comment about like, oh, we drafted a punter, but I kind of am like of the position, and I know that you are as well. Like sometimes it's like okay to take kickers and punters as UDFAs. I
Yeah,
do think,
which they did.
however, right, they did end up taking a kicker, or two kickers actually, as
And a long
UDFAs.
snapper.
But I think again, like what we were saying with Zach Evans, I think the Rams were in a position where they had so many draft picks. It's like if there's a punter that you really like why not take him so nobody else can take
Yeah.
him? So I think that that's what they did with Ethan Evans. Jake, what are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are that special teams coordinator Chase Blackburn did a really nice job in finding him. Just watching Sean McVay talk about him, they're like, "Oh yeah, you took a punter," and he and Les are like, "We didn't take him. It was Chase Blackburn. Like he's the one who apparently flew out to Carolina, wherever. I don't know if it was North or South Carolina for Wingate, but he was with the Carolina Panthers. So I wonder if those connections he used to find this guy, and I think what it comes down to is that, Ethan Evans has a 70-yard leg. He's somebody that can help you on the kickoff because, the big reason why, you know, um, Christopher Dunn wasn't drafted. And I think we touched on this on that question on the live stream. Christopher Dunn doesn't have the leg to consistently hit touchbacks at the next level. And if you can't do that as a kicker, you're not getting drafted. So the Rams get him undrafted. They go reverse, Johnny Hecker, Greg Zuerlein. They instead draft the punter and get the UDFA kicker. And I think this is going to work out for them. Like I said, Ethan Evans is a guy that they really liked, and they're able to, get one of those extra picks and they use it on him. And, he's going to help you on the kickoff. He's going to be wearing number 42, which a lot of people have issues with that. I'll just say this right now. Expect more 40s for specialists, because now that you have these single digit numbers going to linebackers and wide receivers and so forth, there's just like those guys aren't going to get their way. You know what I mean? So 42 is not a shock to me. He is related to Heath Evans, who played in the NFL with the Patriots. I did find that out. So I thought that was kind of cool. Some more NFL bloodlines there. But I like the pick, Alexis. I just think, and I totally understand, people are watching our live stream for 7 hours, and most of the people that are watching it just want to see our reactions to the Ram stuff. So I totally understand. Some people wanted to see more out of us with Ethan Evans, but I don't think you and I thought they were going to draft a punter. And I actually think, at least for me, I don't want to speak for you, but I thought they might go with another vet. So I didn't like go all out with punter. Like if you wanted like really good punter coverage, that was last year. Alexis and I went all out. We found the Rams two punters, probably more than that, and one of them ended up being the guy that we really wanted, that we settled on, was Ryan Stonehouse out of Colorado State. We interviewed him, loved the way he interviewed. Then I actually watched his tape, and I got to tell you, like, I had a feeling, you had a feeling, he ended up being a Pro Bowler, but that was last year. We really focused on punter, and they went out and got Riley Dixon to kind of nullify all of that. But this year, they go with the rookie punter. They get him out of Wingate in the 7th round. I like the pick. I wish I knew more about him in the heat of the moment, but to be honest with you, I didn't, and I didn't have enough time to watch it. So after the fact, watching it, watching whatever I could find on Ethan Evans on YouTube, I felt pretty good about the player that they got, the punter that they got, and the guy that I believe will be, kicking off the kickoffs, because that's also a key thing in the NFL.
Next 7th round pick, Jake. We have Jason Taylor the second, safety out of Oklahoma State, who I really like, but I'll let you go first. What are your thoughts?
I see Ronnie McLeod and I see Nick Scott in this guy. I see the tenacity of Nick Scott, and I see just the consistent, the hardworking, 110 mile an hour type of guy that Rodney McLeod was. And McLeod was a UDFA out of Virginia. Nick Scott was a late round pick out of Penn State in 2019. He's now on the Bengals. Jason Taylor II is going to play on special teams. Doing the show with Cam, him describing as a former Ram that played on special teams, he said every single snap on special teams is like a car crash. It's just constant car crashes. And so you have to be built to play on that, right? Jason Taylor is like a car crash in itself. So, I think Jason Taylor is going to be ready for this. And I think he's somebody down the road, post Jordan Fuller, whoever. I think he can work his way into being a starter. And I think the Rams obviously would love that in the 7th round. They're not expecting that. They're drafting to be a core special teamer with some potential to be a starter down the road. And I think he's going to be a core special teamer. I think he'll make the team. I feel pretty good about him. I think he's ready to go on special teams day one.
Yeah, I think with Jason Taylor, you have that kind of what we talked about with some of the picks earlier, that like potential, where I think the Rams drafted for potential. He's not going to get much playing time right away. He's going to be a special teams guy. But with Jason, what you have is he's very quick, he's very athletic, quick feet, strong hands, hard hitter. He's really good at tracking the ball for a defensive back, but that hard hitting can sometimes be what gets him in trouble. Like a big knock on him was just he draws a lot of flags. He sometimes just makes like the dumb play, which everybody makes every once in a while, but some people more than others. And also he gives a lot of cushion at times. So if he's not making that hit that he's confident in, he's very hesitant and he'll give a lot of cushion. So I think there's a lot of things that the Rams need to work on with him. If he wants to eventually, be playing safety in games for the Rams. But like you said, I don't really think that he was drafted for that right away. I think he's going to be a special teams player. And Jake, that leads us into Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick of the Rams draft, 259th overall in the 7th round, the infamous Mr. Irrelevant of the 2023 NFL draft. The Rams drafted Desjuan Johnson, defensive tackle out of Toledo. And I actually did not know who this was. Regrettably, when they made the pick, Jake, you did know who he was, but
It's one of my
just
guys.
after watching, some of his tape, notes that I have, he's very strong, great balance, great burst, those qualities. Violent hands is what I wrote down. That's something I think that you can notice with like defensive tackles is just like very angry hands, which they should have. He is also dubbed quote unquote undersized Jake, if you can believe it, that we're still here in 2023. That's kind of, if you look at other people's scouting reports of him, they use that as a knock. I don't really think it matters. They say that, the short arms give him trouble rushing off the edge. Maybe a little bit. Maybe it's something he can work on, but call me crazy. I think that they're going to give him the time to work on these things. He was the 14th pick in the draft. He was picked 259th overall. I don't think that they're expecting him to be starting day one. But again, we talk about this potential and drafting for potential. I think the Rams think that he has all the tools to succeed in the NFL. So that's why they took him. But I ended up liking this pick a lot once I looked into him. Jake, what were your thoughts?
Same here. I mean, he was one of the guys that I think I had done 3 videos on. He was one of my guys. When I watched him at Toledo, I just saw that lightning quick first step that just it kind of gives you an Aaron Donald field. Obviously, he's nothing like Aaron Donald, but and I wouldn't say, because the thing about Donald is he had the bulk. I think that's what's lacking with Deswan and what led to him falling to the 7th round. But I mean, I had him ahead of a lot of the defensive tackles that went 3rd, 4th round. I mean, I had him as, I believe, a 4th round grade. I really, really, really like him. And I kept saying in those videos, I was like, look, get this guy in the same room with Aaron Donald and just watch, because I know people have issues with his bulk. They have issues with how much weight he can truly add to his frame. Is he tapped out? But that quick first step, the lightning quick first step, there are super athletes. There are incredible players in the NFL that don't have that. So, I mean, it's very rare that you have a quick first step like that where your get off is like you're already in the backfield and everyone else behind you, if you were to stop it, just completely stop the tape, there are guys still not even out of their stance yet. That's ridiculous. And so he has a lot of those plays where I feel like he just, he gets such a great break, and his get off is incredible. And I think this is one of those guys where, you saw Brock Purdy last year as, Mr. Irrelevant. The Rams have had 2 Mr. Irrelevants in their history, Dave Vobora in 2008, being the most notable one. But, I think this is a guy that can really make a name for himself. I'm not saying he'll start day one, but I'm saying that I think all in all, Alexis, this draft is going to be a blast to watch in preseason. I think this is going to be a lot of fun to see these guys in action. I'm very excited for that. And I'm not ruling out that any of these, slower, maybe the potential's there, but not as high a floor. I'm not ruling out that any of these guys can't carve out a starting role sooner than later. I mean, even O'Shawn Mathis, it just takes a really good preseason to get yourself on the map. I mean, just look at what ended up happening with, Lance McCutcheon. I mean, he wasn't even supposed to make the roster. They got him on a team with, full of wide receivers, and he made the team. He forced their hand. These guys can force the Rams' hand in not only making the roster, but then giving them an opportunity, giving them a role. And I think Deswan Johnson, as Mr. Relevant, he's going to make the team. I do believe that. I think he's going to make the team. I think he's going to add some increased depth for that defensive line room. And maybe someday he becomes a starter, but I'm not betting against that guy, especially that he's in the best situation possible with someone who knows what it's like to be underrated, undersized, all that, and I think him with Aaron Donald, that is going to be a storyline to watch all of training camp, preseason, and so forth.
And this leads to the moment that everyone was waiting for, or they weren't, but we're going to do
Or,
this anyway.
or they skipped it because it's
Or
been
they,
over an hour.
yeah. So we're going to do this really quickly because I think that you and I kind of gave our analysis pretty much in depth
hmm
just saying what we thought of the picks and everything, but overall grades. And I'm going to pull up a Twitter poll, by the way, um, because
Are you
my
now?
my spoiler, if you watch the streams, my grade of this draft is the exact same from the stream. By the way, I it did not change when I went and watched the tape and all this. I My grade is the same. So I personally rated this Rams draft, which again, these ratings are silly because it's like we're basing it like grading based on paper, right? Because we're not
Hmm.
going to know probably for a couple seasons how drafts really play out, but based on paper. I graded this as a B plus, Jake. A lot of people thought I didn't like the draft because I didn't like every single pick because people can't grow up apparently. But I graded this a B plus. Again, for everyone on YouTube who thought I hated the draft, I also took a Twitter poll. By the way, during our live stream, the consensus was also B plus. So if you didn't watch the live stream, what I was saying was no different than everyone in the stream. Then I took a Twitter poll. I sent it out to Rams Twitter. In total, got around 300 votes from the Rams Twitter community, and I asked them what their grade was of the draft, and 50% said between B and B plus. 41% had between A and A plus, and then 9%, C to F. So 50%, so is a big chunk, obviously, of B plus. And the reason that I am giving the Rams this B plus grade is I thought they did pretty good job addressing needs in terms of position. A few of those picks I thought were high. And I thought there were other guys available. Something I think like you have to look at when there's a draft, who's available at that time. Because it's always easy in the seventh round to be like, oh, well, all of these guys are gone. We're going to make this pick. And then that becomes a really good value pick. But I thought the Rams were almost in a way too early making some of those value picks. And again, it's probably just because they just really like those guys. I just didn't prefer it. So it was hard for me. I didn't think every single pick. There obviously was a couple, including the Stetson Bennett pick, that I just didn't like. So, I think B plus is a fair grade. It's with the consensus as well, and it's also I think one of their better drafts that they've had since 2017. I mean, Jake, you and I have been doing the show for 4 years. This was our fourth live stream,
Yeah.
um, and we have seen some not good drafts. And I do not classify this as one of those. I mean, we have gone through the roller coaster of emotions during our live streams. So this was a very good draft, in my opinion. But Jake, what is your overall grade and quick recap of this 2023 Rams NFL draft?
Yeah. So, I mean, keep in mind going into this, the offseason was a complete failure. Really didn't like the direction they were going in. And I kind of, it's not that I had no hope. It's just like, and I still thought they would win like at least 7 games or whatever. It's just like I felt like they were like wasting years of Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and Aaron Donald's career. And so going into this draft, that's how I felt. Now, coming out of this draft, I see the vision. One source in the Rams organization that didn't obviously make the picks, but knew about them, was part of them, I guess, said it was very calculated. They took a calculated approach. They had a plan. They went in. They had certain archetypes they wanted to fill. They had certain things and criteria that they needed. The Rams essentially went into this draft and they created a filter, right? So they have a filter, just like you're going through whatever, like on iTunes or whatever. You're trying to filter out your favorite albums. And you go by 5-star ratings, and then you go by every album that was in 2022, whatever. They had the filter. Their filter was guys that were hardworking. There were a filter of guys that were leaders, guys that had captains, that were captains, had that experience, guys that had been through adversity, guys that were going to make this team better, today and tomorrow. And so I think that's what the Rams did. They accomplished their goals in doing so. They brought in the next generation of Rams football. I know that sounds kind of crazy to admit, but there's a chance Stetson Bennett could be the quarterback of the future. But there's no chance at all that Steve Avila won't be starting day one, because that is who he is. There's no chance at all that Byron Young isn't going to be starting day one. Kobe Turner, there's a pretty darn good chance he's going to be starting day one. Nick Hampton, probably going to be in that rotation. Warren McClendon in the rotation. Davis Allen, rotation. Puka Nakua, rotation. Tre'vius Hodges Tomlinson, you're talking about day one starter at nickel. Zach Evans, rotation. Ethan Evans, starter. Jason Taylor, rotation, special teams. Desjuan Johnson, rotation. And O'Shawn Mathis, potentially rotation, but could also be just a guy that they hold on to on the practice squad. So you have 14 picks. You didn't really, there were some guys that you missed on, I thought. Like Adebare, to me, would have been just unbelievable. But I get it. There were certain guys they wanted. There are certain guys they liked that didn't fit their criteria, but they almost considered them. And keep in mind, we started the draft, Alexis, and they wanted to trade up to get Dalton Kincaid. They liked Miles Murphy. They were unable to trade in the first round. You and I looked at that as a good thing because that means that they didn't give up 3 picks. If they gave up 3 picks, this draft class changes vastly, and I probably give it a different grade. They also wanted Marte Mapu, as I reported during the draft, at 69. They decided to trade down. They missed out on Mapu. That's a shame. The Patriots took him, but now they get Byron Young, Kobe Turner, and they figure it out. And with that trade down, they're able to get Stetson Bennett, who was number 1 on their board after day 2. So, all in all, this is an A+ for me. I don't normally give the Rams this high of a grade. I don't think I've ever given the Rams this high of a grade because you and I have been kind of iffy on some of the picks that they've made over the years. But this was one of those drafts where it was like everybody that I was fine selecting or wanted, they selected. I talked, extensively throughout the draft process about Byron Young and how he would fit the team and how, just what he's been through. Steve Avila is just a plug and play. He has a chance to be an all-pro, but he's a plug and play. Kobe Turner was maybe not the defensive tackle that I was expecting, but they love him. They did their research. And my guy, who I really admire and I got a chance to talk to at the Senior Bowl, Michael Pierce, one of the Rams scouts on in the South, he's the one that was behind that, according to reports. So I was really happy for him. If he liked that guy, trust me, I believe it. I believe he also was really high on Jacoby Durant. So I'll give him his props. Stetson Bennett, to me, that was somebody that I wasn't really expecting them to take in that moment, but it actually makes a lot of sense because now they have a day 1 backup and they have a guy that could potentially start down the road. I love the Nick Hampton pick, going out and getting, just high upside and a guy that maybe could fit right in that rotation. At the end of the day, Warren McClendon, Davis Allen, Tre'vius Hodges Tomlinson, Zach Evans, Desjuan Johnson, like they got my guys. And I just felt that was really cool because we've done 4 drafts together. When have I said they've gotten that many of my guys, so to speak? So that's why it was a really great draft. In my opinion, I just felt like they got a bunch of guys that I had, kind of circled, guys that could fit this team, guys that could have an impact on this team. And they found value in places where, like, if you told anybody before the draft, Tre'vius Hodges Tomlinson's going to go to the Rams in the 6th round, you would have been like, are you kidding me? There's no way he's going to fall the 6th round. Or if you told anybody they're going to get Zach Evans in the 6th round, it's just one of those drafts where I think they really got a ton of value. And maybe if they, reached in a certain spot, they made up for it in the back end. So A+ for me. That doesn't mean anything, obviously, because they absolutely have to show it on the field. And, we've seen that in the past, but I'm feeling really good about this draft. And at the end of the day, I think that the Rams got better. And I think the Rams are definitely showing you that, look, we're not tanking. We're trying to compete this year. We're getting guys that love football. We're getting guys that can be leaders, guys that can stay healthy, guys that can play right away. Not everybody, but decent amount. And we're going to go after this thing. And then maybe 2024, 2025, we're talking the bigger picture. But, we're going to try our best to win a Super Bowl this year. And it's probably not going to happen, but we're not holding ourselves out of that conversation. And I think that's the thing. When you have guys like Sean McVay that are part of your organization, I mean, McVay isn't going to roll over, So I don't know. I thought this draft was excellent. It absolutely accomplished the mission that they were out to accomplish.
So you don't think they're tanking for Caleb Williams?
Oh God. No, no, no. Absolutely not. Did you like my video, by the way, on that?
I did. Yeah, I don't think that the Rams are taking for Caleb Williams. I'm glad that more people are jumping off that ship because for a while on the interwebs it started to seem like that was the minority opinion, and I was getting nervous that a lot of people bought into that narrative. But I think this draft pretty much proved that they're not. They wouldn't have made
Yeah.
a lot of these picks if they were. I think it's silly. I don't think they're going to waste Stafford, Cup, and Donald's last seasons by tanking. And I also don't really like, you and I have had this conversation. I don't like it when teams tank regardless. I just think it's unprofessional, ruins
It
the integrity of
is.
sports. So the Rams are not doing that, guys.
No, they're not.
But in case you were wondering our thoughts on that, but
The
even though I think
organization is laughing behind closed doors, though, that people think that. I'm just saying, like, from people I've talked to, like, they're not taking. Like, the idea that Sean McVay didn't go, because that's the thing, Alexis. If they were tanking, Sean McVay would have taken a year off. Sean McVay would have gone and worked in TV and then come back, because there's no way he would want to go through that 5-12 season with all those injuries and then come back and be like, yeah, I'm not going to try to win. No, there's no chance. The only chance of them tanking, that's not from like the Rams. That's just me saying that. Like, if the Rams, let's just give that some air for a second, okay? The idea that they're tanking, the only way that that could have even been possible is if Sean was out. If he left one, for a year and then came back. But no, they're absolutely not tanking. And furthermore, it just kind of goes to back to what I was saying in the video while I was wearing a USC hoodie and saying that I think he's the real deal and I really like him. I gotta say, like, are we talking about this? If Drake May is a better prospect, are we talking about this with Drake May? No, I think it's whether people want to admit or not. Like, there's some bias. There's some Pac-12. There's some West Coast bias. If there was a quarterback that was better than Caleb Williams in this draft, and he was out of Penn State, if he was out of Miami of Ohio, are we getting that same? No, I think it's very easy to, oh, well, Caleb Williams was at a Rams game, the Rams game where they blew out the Broncos. Oh, Caleb Williams is playing in, the former Rams home, right, at the Coliseum. Caleb Williams is playing in their backyard. Like, it's easy to make those connections, but have we not learned how college football works? We've seen guys who were top prospects. Remember Jake Locker, anybody? Like, Jake Locker was supposed to be the number one overall quarterback, and then he stayed a year and then wasn't drafted number one overall and never became anything. It's not just to crap on Jake Locker, but it's to show you that, like, Sam Darnold, the same school. I mean, Alexis, I went to the Rams-Giants game where the Rams won 51-17. Okay? At that game, Giants fans were wearing custom Sam Darnold Giants jerseys. I'm not kidding you. It was suck for Sam. Where'd that go? Like, what happened with Sam Darnold? Right now, he's competing to potentially start in San Francisco. We don't even know if he's going to. So to just assume that